I lift the crozier and the flame takes the ribbons. The wind claws incense sideways across the basilica steps, and the square is a field of upturned faces, each with ash stitched to the lashes. Vox sirens gnaw the air. Ships, enormous by how they make the cloud banks crawl, show their bellies and spit small suns. I press oil to foreheads with my ring finger, quick, quick, and the bell thrums like a giant thumb drumming a sternum. By late light, the ash is grainy like ground bone. We pull bodies in and close the doors, and sound becomes stone and prayer becomes breath. The nave is dark but for our little fires. My acolytes look for me with their hands before their eyes, the way young birds do. I tie the thurible chain to my wrist so I cannot set it down. The chain bites when I move. Good. Pain keeps count. Light the rail, I say. If the glass breaks, it will cut clean. We lay votive candles to guide a path from the doors to the altar. Wax clots, the small flames leak, and the pict of the martyr above the transept is cracked in a way that makes the eyes look young. I don't look long. People come without words, as if the tongue were something bound on the outside of the mouth. They pour from the side streets, black with dust, bright with blood. They know to come here. The old city knows its grooves. Men who have never crossed themselves try it because it is a handle to hold when there is nothing else that fits the hand. I step up 3 steps on the ambo so I can be seen, not to be tall. I hold the crozier up where the skull on its head can watch, and I speak. Not loud. The roof carries the sound if you feed it with breath and pace. I say, come forward by families, I will mark you. I will hear 3 words. Make them the ones you have left. If you have none, nod, and we have enough nods. A woman lays a baby on the steps and asks if dust will stop the blessing. Dust is old bread, I tell her, and the words come without me choosing them, and she nods as if she owns them. I place my ring in the powder of my chrism and touch the child's brow. The baby opens its mouth wide and laughs once at the taste. Our Lady of Knives in the alcove behind me is sash-thick with prayer papers. The lowest burn, I don't stop that. The doors shake in their rims. In the bar holds it is iron that remembers mine still burning under the mountain. The shaking rides into the stones of the floor, and the candles make their little bodies dance. There is a steady thud somewhere far off, like a hand on a table to keep time. Not guns. Something larger, a beat in the world's ear. A guardsman staggers in with one arm pinned against his ribs with a belt. His other hand drags a boy through the press. He won't talk, he says, and he points at the boy's throat. And he swallowed light. I see the boy's eyes shimmering as if he has been looking at a forge too long. Not tears, some shape of heat. I lay the crozier down to measure the distance between us with my empty palms. Can you nod? He nods. The guardsman tries to force his head lower. I make a warding circle with 2 fingers, and the guardsman steps back as if I had lit his ear. The old training still sticks even now. 3 words, I say to the boy. You use the throat in your mind if the other is shut. He holds his breath as if he dives, then opens the mouth he cannot use. I read the shape of the mouth. I have seen. He shudders without sound, and I smell burnt copper. I take his jaw in my hand and put my forehead to his, skin to skin, so he knows a head can still be just bone and heat and sweat. You are seen, I tell him. Kneel where the wind goes. He nods so hard it becomes a bow. The guardsman sags and sways on his hurt side. Your arm, I say, and the smell comes up again stronger. Hold the rosarius, I tell him, and he takes it in his teeth while I tear the strip of altar cloth not bearing ink and bind him so the bone stays where it belongs a little while longer. We set the confessional as a triage, wood to lean on, words to push breath into the lungs. 10 at a time, I say. No, you do not need to number them. Give me the shape of the first. If it fits under my palm, it is forgiven. A child peels a scab and shows it proudly. That, I tell him, is almost a wound again. Your body would like to practice at surviving. Do not aid it. He laughs because I do not shout. The air trembles the way it does before the choir strikes a note. The little lamps flicker in answer. The vox skull clamped under the ambo gives a small bark. Its green eye blinks, then blooms to red. Static unravels into a few hard syllables of a chant. It is a fragment I know. I was made to learn it in a concrete room with no windows. It is not sung except when a world has been written off a ledger and must be added to another book of names. The skull speaks it flat. Psalm 9. Red palm. I lower my head. There is no explaining this to the small crowd looking at me as if I had a lid to fit the sky. Open your mouth. Air in. Words out. We will move below, I say. Take only what you can pray with or what prays over you. If you have more than one blanket, give the other to someone with none. If you have no hands, and there are mouths that can carry, follow my voice. A door in the chancel opens only from the inside. It is not a secret, but almost no one tries it until a priest puts his hand on it. I do. The hinges complain like old singers clearing their throats. The breath of the crypt comes out damp and plain. It smells of stone that has never seen daylight and men that do not need light to be remembered. The shock comes in the sound first, and we are halfway down the steps and the nave hum runs up to a squeal and claws at my teeth. The air pushes on our backs like a bigger body trying to use our stair. The doors bow in and then out. One of the hinges that had held since I was a novice wrenches out fat with masonry and the right-hand leaf swings like a shutter in a storm. The second bow is the last. The door rips away and becomes a surface for flame to walk along. The square is not there, a wall of light is there instead, it white with yellow at the lips. The light is not flat, it is a rolling ground with waves that take chimneys up and put them down as metal. There is a sound I cannot name. The red glass in the windows breaks inward and grains across the floor like thrown salt that cuts. I press people through the doorway by the head, not unkindly but without apology, because the life of a hand can be saved by hunger if you put bread in it, but there is no bread for a man who turns to look at the light when it is that color. I look once because I must give the shape to my memory in a way it can carry. The tower of the administratum to the east shivers like a reed and sits. The skin of it sloughs. What lives on the floors inside pour out as fireflies that are people whose clothes burn slower than their hair. The organ pipes in the west aisle start to play themselves without touch, and the bell breaks its voice on a note it cannot leave. When the next beat comes, heat goes through the nave as if a giant had blown across the mouth of a kiln. The wooden pews catch with little puffs like children blown into bottles. Smoke takes the numbers off my beads. We go down. We close the stone behind us with a bar that would be a respectable pillar if laid in a nave. The last face through is a man with soot drawn into his laugh lines. He is laughing because he is still inside his skin, and I touch the ring to his cheek as he passes. He does not stop laughing. Immediately the quiet is a second world. Sound turns into things you can carry. A cough, a sob, the scrape of the bar, my own breathing. Ash breathes through the keyhole in a thin, steady trickle. I count. The old bones are arranged like a city. Ossuary on ossuary, boxes with names burned in them, some with letters smooth where hands have rubbed the strokes down to gleam. Skull shelves that look out like congregation, and it should feel crowded. It feels like a long road with well-behaved stones on the side. I take down the travel saints. They are woodlight enough for small hands. I give them to the children and tell them, that dog will bite any dark that tries to bite you first. That woman will not tire. That man carried his brother twice as far as he carried himself. We lay people where the air moves. We do not say safe, we say under, we say within, and the guardsman with the bound arm stands near the hinge where the draft is strongest and refuses to sit. I let him choose. The boy who swallowed light lies on the flagstone with his face turned to the cool. He sleeps with his teeth showing. Once in a while, closed mouths dream their way to that expression. I make a note to ask him later, if later happens. Water, I say, and my acolyte Lynn produces the small clay jugs. We keep 3 for this place. Eden and I had the good thought to have them filled after the last riot. I draw the sign on each an ash and pray that hands learn to be just and sparing. It is easier to believe in providence when there is a ledger to balance. We sing very softly. Smoke writes on the ceiling, then sinks as the stones warm. The first time a beam falls upstairs, the dust drops through the vent like flour. People flinch. I keep the pacing of the song as a measure. When the vox skull in my pocket churs, I stop breathing to listen. The tongue of it is cracked, so the words have a rattle. It sings another slice of the phrase it had given before. Benediction, world, complete. My hand closes around it. The round bone teeth under its chin press print into my palm. The old training makes me want to reply with the other part, but there is no part that suits what we are. I tuck the skull away and press my forehead to the cold stone. Here, I say to the wall, and we are here. Heat comes under the door slow as a guest who thinks he was not invited. The stone warms to a skin temperature you could call generous than greedy. The air thins. People breathe shallow to leave air for others. It is something bodies learn by watching ribs around them. We snuff half the candles. The dark makes the space seem wider. The children curl under the benches and make caves of their arms. I swing the thurible slow. The smoke is pine and myrrh, and it finds the places where the air moves and draws lines I can follow with my hand. We will go deeper, I say at last. Deeper means narrower, more bones to step around, more names to not think. There is a sluice that was once for flood season when the river ran foolish. It tastes like iron when the year is hard. We keep a key on a cord about the neck of St. Tarcellus' statue because no one, not even thieves, will lay hands on her chest. I lift the statue, and the base is hot. I feel my skin stick and do not pull away until the key is free. Lynn breathes between her teeth. The sluice gate gives up with a squeal, then a cough. Wet air comes like a mercy and smells of rot made large. I laugh because I cannot help it, and once I start, I cannot finish. It bends me until the chain pulls on my wrist and the ember in the incense boat kisses my shirt. A gray circle blooms there like a flower that decided not to be pretty. Father, Lynn says. Ida, and her voice is steady. I stop and taste iron on my lip. I am still a man with a mouth. Good. We go into the sluice 2 by 2, hands on shoulders. We are careful of the ones who cannot see. The boy who swallowed light wakes when I touch his foot. His pupils are as wide as they can be, and still they have that shimmer in their rims. Come, I tell him. There is a dog that bites dark down there. He smiles for the first time. It is not a child's smile. The channel is a throat, and the brick is slick with algae and something that lives on it. Some of the old bones come with us. We do not mean to, but our sleeves catch and tug them free, and they float like dull birds and knock our knees. The floor is silt. We leave prints. I hope no one follows who should not, and then I let go of that hope because it is too large to carry. The first of us reaches the vent that looks out on the river ditch. The grate is cold, and so the water has not been taken by the same heat the city breathes. That is a relief you can touch. I put my cheek to the iron and feel a thin wind. It smells of mud and things that will live where people cannot. Here, I say again to no one who will answer, and we begin to lift the smaller ones through. Above the sky's a jar of ink with a candle behind it. The color inside the fog changes. Sometimes it pulls long as if something huge has picked it up and stretched it. Then it lets go and the fog slides back like flesh. A rain like cinders falls. The river is mostly steam. Things bob in it that might be boats or parts of houses or men who thought water would say no to fire. The far bank is a line of teeth without gums. We huddle in the ditch and pull cloaks over heads and press ourselves under the lip of the earth so the sparks stray by. The big sound still comes and goes. It sets mud panting. It is not thunder. Thunder stops to listen to itself, and this thing has no vanity. It simply works like a millstone that has never met grain it did not love. The guardsman with the bound arm finally sits. He puts his good hand on his thigh and squeezes until the knuckles are polish. "Sir," he says, and I flinch because the title is wrong here and also correct. "Do we confess?" "Already done," I say. "Use it." He nods. Tears knock the ash on his nose into thread. A woman leans on my shoulder as if she were testing if the wood will hold. "My man is up there," she says. "He did not come when I told him he wanted to choose his hat. People love their small flags," I say before I can stop myself, but she nods. "He always did," she agrees. We do not speak more. She holds my sleeve and I let her. The boy who swallowed light watches the sky. Steam halos him so I can see the place his breath lives. "I still see it," he whispers at last, and the voice comes through as if he had found a hole in his own neck, even when I shut. He closes his eyes. We wait. He opens them again. It looks at me. He does not sound afraid. He sounds tired, the way old men do. I put my palm on his hair. It is hot as a living thing. It is a living thing. I measure the beat at his temple with my thumb and count. I do not know what I am counting toward. I count. Another beat from the world's ear moves the ditch under us. Silt runs like flour again. The bells of the basilica are beyond hearing, but the tendon in my wrist remembers their song and jumps. I think of the main door, bright as a wall of cut bread before it became part of the fire. I think of the altar stone, which I have kissed every morning for years until I cannot name the number. I think of the ink on my vestments flaking like paint on a ship. I do not think of the picture of the martyr with young eyes that thought would be wide, and I will not open my jaw for it. People sleep between one breath and the next, the body decides. The woman with the man who loved his hats breathes open. Shut, open, wider shut. The guardsman leans forward and then back. He is trying not to die sitting down. But if he must, he will not complain. Lynn passes the last water. The clay cup clinks teeth lightly, permission to sip and not swallow, like digging a well into your own throat. A child wakes and asks if the saints can find us underground. The saints like dark, Lynn tells her. It shows off their glow. The fog shifts and gives us a sliver of the sky. I see one of the ships. Its belly is red with entry scars I have only ever seen in books. It turns its nose and shows a row of mouths. They open. Pale cylinders drop in lines like beads cut from a cloth. They fall without hurry. They are not meant for speed. They are meant for certainty. Close your mouths, I say without planning to, and people do. The boy who swallowed light watches with his lips parted and then shuts them as if he had felt my hand against his jaw. We do not hear the strike, and the noise is too large to climb down to us as anything but pressure. The earth arches, then lays its head down on the other side of the bed. Water from the ditch slaps my cheek and tastes like pennies. The air wails high and keen. The path we took from the crypt breathes out a crack, and a tongue of fire feels along it and goes out when it meets the wet. The saints under Lynn's arms knock heads. There is a time after the largest work is done when the small works show themselves. We begin those. Children with scrapes, men with old shrapnel that woke in the heat. A woman whose milk stopped and started again the wrong color. I lay my hand flat and let their heat climb into it. I make the sign I have always made, and I say the words I have always said, and I am surprised each time they live in the air. I am surprised each time they do not. At last, the light above the ink jar sky is steady enough to look at without the eyes drying. Smoke makes a dome with ribs. The city beneath is a candle stump run over by a wheel. The basilica roof has gone to black lace. The square is a bowl of glass with shapes in it that are not bowls. The tower that sat down earlier has finished the motion and lies now like a man who will nap in his clothes. I put my hand on the ground because the view moves the insides of me as if they were water, and in stone is a useful thing. We climb out of the ditch only far enough to steal unburned boards from a broken barge and make a wedge against the wind. We do not go far. The air is a kind of animal with opinions. It leans this way and that. It does not want us to be tall. We lie under the boards and hold them when the fists of the wind knock. I listen for voices under the wind. There are some. Far screaming becomes only air practicing a vowel. Near, yet there are two men arguing in the ruins of perhaps a stair about whether to go toward the light. I bless them for staying a thought long enough to put words around it. I do not go to them. I cannot spend the walking. The guardsman dies in his sleep with his hand still clamped on his thigh. Blood has dried black at the edges of the bandage and gold where it soaked the center. I unwrap him because I cannot leave a thing like that on a man. I close his mouth. I take his dog tag and tuck it into the lip of mortar between two bricks as if the city were a pocket. The boy who swallowed light watches. "Do you need to cry?" I ask him, but he shakes his head. "My eyes are working on other things," he says. We leave the sentence at that. Late, if this day has a late, the ash begins to fall soft and even like farewells spoken by someone hoarse. A stretch of wall gives up and slides into the ditch with a hiss. The river shows a foot of clear water suddenly, and then it goes back to brown steam as if it had blinked. The jar of sky bleaches. The big sound comes only in the bones now. The stones under me hear it and tap it, but the air no longer pronounces it. I gather the little ones with the travel saints and tell them to look at the dogs and women and men in their hands, and then look at me and then look at the sky and then fill the space between with breath. We do. It makes a shape like a ladder. I do not tell them that. We try it again. No one cries. That is not triumph. That is a fact, and like all facts, it should have a place to sit. I set it down. People sleep like sacks that have been untied and poured somewhere new. I move from body to body and check for heat, for the small movements that say the work of lungs continues. I press my ring to each brow, cooled now. The oil smears gray. In the pause between one breath and the next, I think of the phrase the Vox skulls sang, and my mouth silently answers the part it thinks follows. And I feel the words go into the stone instead of the air, and the stone is indifferent in a way that comforts me. Lynn dozes sitting up, her chin on the rim of a bucket now full of ash instead of water. The woman who loved her man's foolish hats turns the hat she did grab, a ridiculous red felt, in her hands and does not notice when the ash makes it heavy and it slips. It falls into the ditch and floats for a time, then soaks and slides under. She lets it go and does not look after it. The boy settles beside me without asking. He stares sideways into the brown steam. "Does it end?" he says, very soft, as if his throat were a cracked bell he did not want to break with the striking. I breathe in and the ash moves like a second tongue in my mouth. "Things change shape," I say. "We mark the change. It is not enough. It is not small enough." "We stay," I say then, and that fits better. He sets his head against my shoulder like a man putting down a tool. I swing the thurible once, twice, a third time, and each pass draws a feeble line against the smoke that makes a pattern I do not name. The chain has eaten a track into my wrist. I will carry that track until the flesh decides to sand it down. There is no room for prophecy in this. The ember inside clicks and reforms. It will be gone soon. I have more grains, but the thought of opening the bag makes my hands tired. A gust slaps the boards and drops something heavy against them. It is a bell clapper still hot enough to print my palm when I touch it. It must have fallen far. The impact has ground one end to a curve like a tongue. I set it near my knee and hold it like a relic because it is. The bell it belonged to spoke the hours for more men than I will ever see, and now the clapper is a handle of iron I can put in my hand. In the near dark, the little fires in the city's bones blink and go out. The glow on the underside of the clouds pulls back like breath under a door. The ash settles. My people, the ones in the reach of my voice, rest. The wind shifts and brings a smell like rain that changed its mind. I do one more circuit, touching brow lines and knuckles, making small litanies in the mouth that are just counting dressed as hope, and the boy's heat against my shoulder is steady. Lynn wakes enough to raise her head and then sleep again. The woman's hands are empty now and still. The guardsman's dog tag shines in its bit of mortar when a spark finds it and then winks. I lay the crozier down so the skull's hollow eyes watch the ditch and the boards and the slope of ruin beyond. The iron clapper sits against my knee and the skin there learns its heat. And I breathe and the ash moves with my ribs. It is gritty, it tastes of old coins and the insides of rocks. When I press my thumb into the chrism cup, there is one last wet trace. I make a small cross on my own brow with it and feel the damp cool vanish under the heat coming off my skin. The thumbprint smears gray.